So in fact, family is not always blood. It's the people that you create a bond with, that you do almost anything for, that inspire you and teach you. During my 25 years, this has been my experience with so many of you. I do stand in total gratitude for this gift. So hey, I like living, I really do. It's true though, I have sometimes been wildly, despairingly miserable about the condition of the world, conditions of my friends, and even sometimes my own behavior when it has come from my shadow side. But no matter what, I've always been quite certain that to be alive is a miraculous gift not to be wasted, that we are here to find meaning no matter what. And the meaning is ultimately always about kindness, compassion, and love, and courageously acting on these regardless. These are profound cliches, so please indulge me one last time. A few thoughts from these past 25 years, even though there really is nothing new under the sun to be said. Let me share with you a few lessons I've learned from many of you that I've worked to incorporate in my life, less than perfectly, 4 cliches. Cliche 1, and I would like to start this with a question, actually, that I'm asking all of you. I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and I'd like you to raise your hands if you're in the affirmative with each one of these questions, and hold it up for about 4 seconds. So raise your hand if you like being managed and controlled by the leader and boss. Raise your hand if you like that. Damn, not a hand. Raise your hand if you want to be inspired by your leader or boss. Yeah. How simple is this lesson, and how often it is ignored? And it's ignored by people that aren't even aware that they're ignoring it. Yet if I had several dollars for each person who's gone through leadership who's told me a story about a boss who micromanaged them rather than inspired them, I'd be traveling around the world without having to worry about my 401k. The lesson's simple. Lead by mission, not control, and people will do remarkable things. Cliche 2. There's actually not much I regret in my life. Yes, I have said and done some stupid, unkind, thoughtless things and wished I could take them back. And when I realize my transgressions, I do my best to make amends, but somehow stupid stumbling seems to be endemic in life for all of us as we grow. My largest and true regret that has informed my life happened at the age of 17 in 1964 in Jim Crow, Virginia. I was with a group of 3 or 4 of my high school buddies, and we walked into the drug fair on the corner of Glebe Road and North Persian Drive. And when we walked in there, there was 4 or 5 young black men and women around 20, 22, 23, and they were sitting in at the drug counter, asking for an elementary right to be served food. And there was a group standing around them already, spilling out hatred, racial insults. My 3 friends joined them, and I knew it was wrong. And I turned around and I just walked out silently. I let fear rule me. Not just the fear of being physically hurt, but even more the fear back then of being socially isolated. And so I just walked out quietly. Nothing can hurt more than to betray one's own principles of doing what one knows is the right thing. Nothing. I've tried to stay true in thought and action to the principles of doing the right thing since then. And you know in your heart that you must also do that or live with a burning shame. Cliche 3. Do not pollute the world or your own existence with taking revenge or getting even. It's fine to rejoice in having your principles triumph, but let us never take ugly, petty satisfaction in the demise of others or look for revenge. As Thich Nhat Hanh has pointed out, looking for revenge, taking satisfaction in the demise of your opponents, getting even, is like carrying a red-hot coal in your hand to throw at someone. It burns you. Let us all drop that coal. Cliche 4, close to the end here. The bad news we all know is that people can, in fact, act in ways that are dishonest, petty, cruel, and vicious, and that problems are so daunting that sometimes it appears almost hopeless. The good news is that people can be kinder, more loving, and more compassionate than we can ever dream, even against the odds. And I am convinced that in spite of the long history of cruelty, that the basic instinct is to search for and give love. So a prison story. Started actually with a vision. I participated in the visioning in the class of 1997 because we had an odd number of people. A prison story from around 12 or 13 years ago. Go into prison, do volunteer work. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it was the first time that I was the lead facilitator. There's a young man named Diata. He had tattoos, a lot of them. I remember really distinctly the tattoo on the left arm. It was a tattoo of what was essentially a Glock 9mm gun. And it said above that, "Born a Thug." And on the right arm, it had another Glock 9mm. And it said, "Die a Thug." And he was difficult. He was clearly the alpha male in the group. Everyone was paying attention to him when he said derisive things about the processes we were going through, when he snorted with derision. And then the third day of our session. And I don't know what it was. I just kept trusting the process of this program called Alternatives to Violence program and trying to be present with an open heart to him. And there was this pause, and I looked at him. And I don't know, it's like, Amazing Grace sometimes. He just suddenly stopped. This guy had it hard. He grew up with a mother who was a junkie. His father was in prison for homicide. He was serving a life sentence for homicide back in the days under Glendenning when life meant life. He was facing the rest of his life in prison. And he suddenly stopped as our eyes locked. And his eyes welled up with tears. And he said, and this is a paraphrase damn close to a quote, "I'm through hurting people. I'm through with the thug life. I'll be a force of good for the rest of my life, regardless of the cost to me." And then he paused, and everybody was looking at him astounded. Diata, so hard. And then he said, "I'm scared." I was inspired by his courage and encouraged that anything's possible. I've often wondered what would have happened if this young man had been given a good school, decent housing, an environment where he could have walked around the streets safely, positive role models, loving parents. What if he'd been given what most of us in this room had been given? And I know some people in this room haven't been given all that. Gardnell is up here on the stage. In fact, the same prison that Carter was in was the prison I was at working. What would have happened if he had been born with a life of opportunity like most of us? And I think we all know the answer. Diata. I recently heard someone describe such people as moral flatliners. to be discarded as refuse. Well, what I would say is if Deotta can decide in that hellhole of a prison to be a force for good, then what excuse do we really have for not becoming a force for good? I believe to live on hallowed ground is to be totally vulnerable to the deepest feelings and risk being fully alive in compassionate action, to hold the hand of a dying friend, to watch someone you mentored fail miserably and offer a helping hand again, and then again, to risk a big dream and have it entirely collapse and start all over, to expose yourself to the world and the possibility of ridicule for something really big, to truly be of service. This is to be fully alive. I'm in on this for what time I have with this life I am given. I'm in all the way. Are you in? Are you in all the way? For this is the crossroad I want to keep meeting all of you at with the precious time I have left. Thank you.